Welcome to another episode of the Filmosophers Movie Pick Show. I'm Chris Bush.
I'm Dean Slider.
And on the Filmosophers Movie Picks, Dean and I make a film recommendation each, a film we think you ought to see. And if you've seen it, let us know if you agree. And if you haven't seen it, put it on your watch list and let us know. And while you're at it, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the red button. I'll go first. My pick of this week is a 2017 documentary called Dolores, about civil rights and social activism icon Dolores Huerta. It's put together by Peter Bratt, brother of actor Benjamin Bratt. And it's the story of a woman who helped to establish rights for migrant farmers. We all have heard of Cesar Chavez and his work to create the United Farm Workers Union and unionize migrant farm workers who had horrible conditions working for these big agribusinesses in Central California. And Dolores Huerta was a little known figure, really, by many, was really a lot of the power behind that movement. She had many children. She was endlessly traveling, much to the neglect of her family life, but with single-minded focus. And she was the one, I think, who coined the phrase, "Si se puede," yes, we can, which was famously co-opted by a certain politician in his 2008 presidential race. Dolores was close with Bobby Kennedy. She was actually on the podium with him at the Ambassador Hotel the night he was killed. She's an amazing figure, articulate. And the beautiful thing about some of these documentaries, which I think we're kind of in the golden age of documentaries right now, is the amount of archival footage of her and her work through the years, which allows us just access to see and hear and witness this the life of this person and the life of these times. It's an incredible story of just personal, conviction and one pointed focus on helping the selfless, helping improve the plight of others. And it's just a remarkable document, I think, that's called Dolores, spelled D-O, not D-E, D-O-L-O-R-E-S. Really recommend it.
Okay, Chris, I haven't seen that one, but I will make a point, having grown up in California in the 60s in a progressive household, as I know you did. I remember the days of boycotting grapes.
And the grape boycott, as you can imagine, features mightily in this film.
Right.
But it's fascinating to just see all the background and the context.
By the way, I once interviewed Cesar Chavez for a writing project that I was on. And,
oh, wow.
And he was lovely. He was very gracious. And he talked a lot about the dichos. This was the influence of his mother, and the dichos, which means the sayings, the proverbs, the proverbial Mexican wisdom that he learned from his mother that helped guide him in his work with the United Farm Workers.
And, he's portrayed very, very reverentially, I think, and favorably in this film, but also the film doesn't turn away when dealing with the issues of patriarchal and male-dominated hierarchies, even within the Mexican activist community, and how Dolores really had to fight to assert herself in that world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was the case within the Black civil rights movement. It's that's an old story.
Yeah.
So my pick for this week is also a documentary. It's a new one that recently showed on PBS from Florentine Films, which some of you know that is Ken Burns' outfit out of Walpole, New Hampshire. The lovely, I should mention, small town of Walpole, New Hampshire, which if you look at the credits of any Ken Burns documentary, he always thanks the residents of Walpole and the proprietors of the local diners and Burdick's chocolate shop which are favorite haunts. I should mention, full disclosure here, that my wife, Yafa Lorea, who is a documentary film editor, formerly worked at Florentine Films. So we're friends with Ken Burns and with Lynn Novick, who is his co-director on this film, as well as a number of his films in recent years. So this new one
I don't think we're risking any conflict of interest when it comes to recommending a Ken Burns documentary.
Yeah, they're really good. He figured out how to do this thing. The new one is Hemingway, big 3-part series. And I wish that I had this thing when I was still in the classroom in my 33 years teaching literature. I taught Hemingway. I learned a lot that I did not know. And well, first, let me just back up, say a little bit about the Ken Burns technique, the Ken Burns effect, which many people have in their computer. For, I think probably for a lot of younger people in particular, they know that, okay, if they're on their photos, if they click on Ken Burns effect, they get this panning and zooming effect that makes their still photos seem much more dynamic and alive. Of course, that's being done in a completely canned way. It's not in a thoughtful way. Ken really invented that technique. He discovered, after he showed his great epic many-part series on the Civil War, people would come up to him afterward and say, I was so astonished. I didn't realize that there were moving pictures in the time of the Civil War. And it's because that Ken Burns effect was so effective in bringing the still photos to life. So the Hemingway series, it's really terrific. I mean, Hemingway, of course, is this fascinating, larger than life figure. Everything about the Hemingway legend it was all real. It all happened. It's all there in the film. The epic drinking, all the participation in the First World War, the Spanish Civil War, Second World War. It's kind of comical, misguided mission trying to hunt down German U-boats in the Gulf of Mexico with his fishing pals in his fishing boat. The whole parade of wives, and at any given moment, whenever he was married to wife number N, let's say, he was already sleeping with wife N plus one. So that's all there. And what made that legend, it's a tragic story, really, because it's really a story. This aspect of it is a story about ego. If you think about it, how many writers can you dress up as for Halloween and be recognized? Right? I can think of 3, right? Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Hemingway, right? That large a persona, that large a presence. They even have the weird, Hemingway days down in Key West where he used to live, where you have all these white bearded, portly gentlemen doing a lot of drinking and trying to be the one that looks most like Ernest. So yeah, all that is there. Amazing footage in this film. The one bit of footage that really sticks with me is in the Second World War, the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest. And there's this incredible footage of these GIs walking through this like haunted forest, looking around with just the fear in their eyes. And you can't get this out of your head. What really makes Hemingway important, though, is not any of that, right? I mean, he set out to become the big number one king bull elephant of American fiction. And the tragedy of his life is that he succeeded. And then, he had to drag this damn elephant around with him everywhere he went and keep the thing fed and fight off every new young bull that came along. And that's the tragedy of his life. But there's a lot of egotistical blowhards who drink too much. We don't care about. Why do we care about Hemingway? This is why. This is a book I used to teach, A Farewell to Arms. Here's the opening paragraph. Unlike anything that had been written in American fiction till then. Because it's not like fiction. What it's like is haiku. In the late summer of that year, we lived in a house in a village that looked across the river and the plain to the mountains. In the bed of the river, there were pebbles and boulders, dry and white in the sun, and the water was clear and swiftly moving and blue in the channels. Troops went by the house and down the road, and the dust they raised powdered the leaves of the trees. The trunks of the trees, too, were dusty, and the leaves fell early that year, and we saw the troops marching along the road, and the dust rising, and leaves stirred by the breeze falling, and the soldiers marching, and afterward the road bare and white except for the leaves. It's just so beautiful, and that beauty is just done with nouns. Nouns and a few adjectives like dry and white and dusty that are so solid and chunky they feel like nouns. And when people imitate, when they do bad Hemingway imitations, they write all these short monotonous sentences. That's not how he wrote. That last one that goes on forever because it's about the troops marching by, and the sentence, by the time you finish reading that sentence, you feel like it's taken as much time as it would take for all those troops to march by you. It's just remarkable. And I used to spend a whole class day teaching that one paragraph that I just read. This film begins with I had never seen this before, his handwritten manuscript for that page with the corrections, with the changes, so you can see the process. It reads, because of its brilliance, it reads like it just fell off the tree that way, but it's a lot of work to make it that simple.
That must have been terrific for you, knowing that, having that mean as much as it did to you, to know that Ken agrees.
Yes. Yep. No, I mean, that page, that chapter 1, which is that page and one more page, like changed writing in English. No one could write. You didn't necessarily have to write like Hemingway, but now that had happened, and everything after that had to happen in that context. There was a lot of flowery frou-frou that, if you read earlier writers, if you read Nathaniel Hawthorne, you read Herman Melville, which is brilliant, but it's really European writing. And it's really, okay, we're going to go into the weeds a little bit. A lot of people don't realize English has two main root languages. There's Anglo-Saxon, right, which has these blunt monosyllabic words that sound like what they mean. Dirt, fire, dog, sky, guts, shit, right? 1066, the Normans invade, and they bring their Frenchy language with them. And they become the ruling class, and the two languages mix. But now if you want to be classy, you don't say dog, you say canine. You don't say guts, you say les intestins. You don't say shit, you say la défécation, right? And then for the next 8-9 centuries, writers not wanting to sound like Anglo-Saxon peasants would use the long words. They use the French words. High school students instinctively, when they want to sound smart, they always use the longest word they can. And I got to fight them and tell them, stop doing that. It doesn't work. It doesn't make you sound smarter. It sounds like you're trying to sound smarter. It's why no cop when he's giving a press conference in the news, will ever say the guy left the car. They'll always say the individual exited the vehicle, right? So what Hemingway does is he turns the clock back to 1065. He purges the language of all that fancy frou-frou and gets back to words that sound like things.
Was Hemingway able to articulate what inspired him to be a literature pioneer? And is that revealed in the documentary?
It is to some degree. One very fascinating thing that they show is as a young man, he worked as a reporter for the Kansas City Star. That was a great practice because that's observing. The other thing he did was he did a lot of hunting and fishing in Upper Michigan. When you're tracking a deer, you got to pay attention to what you really see, not what you want to see or what you think you see. There's a fascinating thing in the film where they show the Kansas City Star style sheet that he had to follow. And it starts with write short sentences. Right. So a lot of that, the just reporting, just the facts, ma'am, and reporting it in plain, straightforward English. A lot of it comes from there. Some of it came from his early mentor. The film doesn't really go into this, but his early mentor in Paris was Gertrude Stein. And Gertrude Stein was already starting to pioneer some of this kind of language. Everyone that helped Hemingway along in his early days, sooner or later he turned against them and said nasty things about them because of his deep need to be just a self-created genius with no predecessors. But the movement toward plain English, plain American, really pretty much starts with Mark Twain. When Mark Twain writes Huckleberry Finn, and we're having Huck tell the story. In fact, in Huckleberry Finn, at the beginning of the book, Twain had to state, he put a statement there explaining that the characters there are speaking in dialect, which Twain knows firsthand. It basically had to say, I meant to do this. Because it was so taken for granted that literature had to be written in this frou-frou, quote unquote, literary language.
Great.
So Hemingway, directed by the great Ken Burns and the also great Lynn Novick. You can see it streaming on PBS.
Great. Okay, we got our work cut out for us, movie fans. So thanks for joining us on this episode of Chris and Dean's Filmosophers Movie Picks, and we hope you'll join us next time.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Filmosophers Movie Talk Show. Please subscribe to stay up to date on our newest episodes.